it just kind of took a life of its own. And so several people shared and we talked about it, and I think, you know, churches in a lot of ways, they just don't keep up with things. I'm reminded of, you know, church, how it responded to divorce. We didn't talk about divorce, we didn't acknowledge divorce. In fact, we tended to make divorced people feel even worse about them having a marriage that failed. You know, is that what the church ought to be doing? Is kicking people when they're down? You know, the church should be a place where you have arms open wide, and it's a place of refuge, a place for the hurting to come and feel loved and accepted. You know, and boy, aren't we doing the same thing with people who bear depression? We say, you know, if you're a Christian, you ought not be depressed. And we love to have these little catchphrases, you know, about, you know, a real Christian is always going to be joyful, and blah, blah, blah. And so what do with a depressed Christian is we make them feel worse about themselves. And so I just have to think there's a better way for us as Christians and us as a church to handle that topic. And so hopefully through Danny's leadership, we'll have some really good conversations. And when we get to the other side of this, maybe we'll have a better understanding and we'll be more empathetic. And we'll find ways to be redemptive to people who are hurting and having depression. So Danny, take it away, brother. Look forward to it.
Peter already, you know, the end of last year, this subject came up, and the night it did was when the lady killed herself and then killed her children on the Carter Street fight. That was the night that it came up, and one of the questions that was asked was, how can somebody do that? And Tammy, she came up with a really good answer. She couldn't go any further, but she didn't want to leave her children. That's the frame of mind that she was in, I'm pretty sure. Number one, we got to be honest. Now, that's the word for the night. I'm going to be honest with you. I need you to be honest with each other. I need you to be honest with yourself. So, with that being said, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. And we'll see. Once I get this on. There you go. All right.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
How many people know somebody who deals with depression or anxiety?
Okay.
How many people have someone in their family who deals with depression, anxiety, some kind of mental disorder? How many of you deal with that? I deal with it on a daily basis. According, you know, when I started doing this and looking around, according to one study, I found one in 4 dealt with some kind of mental disorder. Another one said 1 in 5. So if there were 80 people in here, according to 1 to 4, 20 of them would be dealing with some kind of mental disorder. Now the church in the past, and you all know it, most of us grew up in church. You ever heard of you know what an oxymoron is? It's when you put 2 words together that don't make any sense, like jumbo shrimp, thundering silence, awfully good. The church in depression has been an oxymoron. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. If you can't come to your brothers and sisters in Christ and feel comfortable and be in a place where you can share what's on your mind and your heart and not be judged, then we as a church have failed. So that's what this is about. Is trying to understand, get some idea of how the church needs to deal with depression and mental illness. This is a number I'm gonna put up here for you. 800,000. Think about that now. That's the number of people every year that commit suicide in the world. It's one every 40 seconds. Every 40 seconds, somebody commits suicide. Suicide is number 10 on the U.S. What was it called? Lost my train of thought. Causes of death. It ranks number 10 in causes of death. And a lot of that comes from depression, mental disorders. We know that. It's people with depression feel alone. And I talked to Brother Peter a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to figure out a way to describe depression. And what I come up with is, think about somebody really close to you who's died. That's sadness. Think about that. Think about not being able to have any peace. No peace. As Christians, we're supposed to have joy in our life. But the number one thing that depression does is rob you of your joy. It robs you. It takes it away. I had a really good thing worked out in my head, but if y'all might see it, he just left me. But yeah, I'll come back in a minute. But And Michelle, you see the screen. Everybody knows what that is, right? If somebody's got a broken arm or hurt arm. You can see that. And this is what we think depression looks like, right? A lot of the times, and sometimes it does look that way. Abraham Lincoln dealt with depression his whole life. There's one story where he lost a close friend, and they found him wandering around in the woods with a shotgun by himself. And he during the time that he was president, he had a lot to deal with. So he dealt with depression on a daily basis. Spurgeon, Charles Spurgeon, he dealt with depression. One of the greatest preachers, speakers probably that ever lived. But when he was preaching as a young man to a large group of people, and some pranksters yelled fire. And the story goes that everybody got up to go out, and in the process, 7 people died. Because everybody trying to get out. Several more people were hurt. But he dealt with depression after that his whole life. Martin Luther King Jr. He tried to commit suicide twice as an adolescent. As an adult, they tried to get him to seek treatment, but he wouldn't do it. Winston Churchill, the leader of England in World War II, he actually referred to depression as his black dog. That's what it was to him. I'm not going to get into the science because I'm not a scientist, but I will mention this. You have sending neurons and transmitters or receivers in your brain. And they put out what is called serotonin or dopamine. A person with depression somewhere they're either not putting enough serotonin out, or their receivers are not receiving it. There's a block somewhere in there. That's what happens. That's what they think happens. It's a chemical imbalance in the brain. But they also know that that's not all it is. There's other things that contribute to it. But that's the way it was explained to me. It's a sickness. And in the church, it's a stigma. Mental illness in the church has always had a stigma attached to it. Nobody's ever wanted to talk about it. Nobody's ever wanted to address the situation because, like I said before, joy and depression, Christians are supposed to be joyous. Christians are not supposed to have anything wrong with them. But it doesn't work that way. And you'll see, maybe next week or the week after, but we're going to talk about some characters in the Bible. It doesn't say they had depression, but by what it said, it does say they were dealing with depression and anxiety. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to tell you my story. I may cry, but just bear with me. Because what God has brought me through has given me a greater compassion for those people who are hurting. When I was a kid, I was small. Some of you know the story. My nickname's Chigger. And first day of school, first grade, I had to jump to get on the bus. And the bus driver's name was Charlie Cruz. And he said, "Boy, you ain't no bigger than a Chigger. You don't need to be going to school." So I got hung with that nickname, and it stuck with me my whole life. And my church family knows my real name, but outside these walls, it's not a whole lot of people that know my real name other than my family. So I was small. I always felt like I come from a family that were big men. They're big guys, big muscular guys, and I was a little bitty rat. So I always had to overcompensate, trying to make myself feel bigger or add up to the ones around. And that's hard as a kid. When you already in your mind think that you're not good enough. And that's where I was. I went through my high school years, played football, 5'6", 150 pounds, soaking wet. But I overachieved because I wanted everybody to think that I was just as big as anybody else, that I was just as good as anybody else. And even in my, I had ulcers when I was 16 years old. That's how things were eating me up, even at that young age. I kept everything inside, didn't let it out, kept it all myself. I went on and served my country. During those years, I was away from home. I was 18 years old, farm boy, never been away from home. I got sent 10,000 miles away to Athens, Greece, by myself, didn't know anybody. That was a real experience for me too. Homesick is bad. And later on in the year, Christmas and holidays, it hit me even worse. When I came home, I started drinking to cover up a lot of things that I was feeling inside. And I did that for a while. And my mom sat me down, talked to me, and told me, she said, "Son, there's never been a groom that drank that didn't wind up an alcoholic." So I said, "Well, I don't want to do that." I met the love of my life, Michelle. I've told that story. That's a prayer. That's a prayer. I prayed to God for her. Had my children. Early on in our marriage, I didn't realize what I had in my wife. And now I beat myself up about that because I didn't love her the way she should have been loved then. That's one of the things that weighs on my mind now. My children, I guess I overprotected them because I didn't want them to be hurt. I didn't want them to be called names. I didn't want them to be made fun of. everybody that's a parent knows that there's a fine line that you have to walk. Sometimes you have to let them figure things out on their own. But that was hard for me, because I remember how I was made fun of, how I was picked on, and I didn't want my children to have to go through that. I'd always dealt with depression in some way, but I had always been able to pull myself out of it. Until about 5 years ago, one Sunday morning, the phone rang, and it was my mom. My sister had passed away, 48 years old. Passed away in her sleep. And I had been speaking at church some, and my mom asked me to speak at her funeral. So I did. But I never was able to grieve for my sister the way I needed to. Because I felt like I had to be strong for my parents, I had to be strong for my nephews. So I held it all in, I pushed it all down. Working at a job I really didn't like. But during all this, you know, God was working with me my whole life. He's been with me. And during all of this was going on, and God, I surrendered to the ministry, and things were good. And, you know, you think everything's going great. And then one morning you wake up and you realize it's not. I started withdrawing from my church family, my family. Started sleeping, going to sleep early. Didn't feel like I was good enough for my wife, my children. I had that, it just kept going over and over again. And the things that would come up in my mind, I couldn't get them off. It was just like a dog on a bone, you know. I just kept on and on and on and on. And then it started affecting my sleep. I started sleeping 2 hours a night, and I'd be wide awake. And as depression set in on me more and more and more, the thoughts that I was having were not Christian thoughts. I'll just put it that way. And one day I woke up and I said, you know, my wife and my children would be better off without me. I had got there. I was rock bottom. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn to. Michelle, bless her heart, she stayed right with me, but for about 2 months, it was touch and go. I got, God was working all of this out for me, but during the time that I was dealing with this, I didn't feel God. I thought I was by myself. I thought God had forgotten me. But I talked to Brother Peter. Brother Peter helped me. Michelle did. David Downs. But my church family didn't know what I was going through because I had learned to hide it. And I learned to hide it well. When I hit the wall and I decided I can't go on like this anymore. I can't do this. I can't do it. There was never any peace. I couldn't find relief in any way. I had a job that I didn't really care for, and it was killing me mentally, physically, spiritually, everything. After I talked to Michelle, I left the job, and during that time, I started seeing a counselor, and things just continued to spiral down, and I finally wound up going to a Rolling Hills, an outpatient thing they have at Rolling Hills. Now the thing about that is when I quit my job, what money we had, we used. I didn't have a vehicle in good enough shape to drive back and forth to Franklin every day. And the money that it was going to cost, we didn't have that either. So I knew where to get help, but I didn't know how I was going to get help. At the time, like I said, I couldn't see God. I didn't know He was there. But now I can look back and see where He walked with me every step of the way. He took me away from the job. He gave me the courage to step out on faith and know that we were going to be okay. My mom got a new car. She gave us her old car. That's how I got back and forth. The money, I think it was $4,000 I had to come up with. It was paid. From Michelle's work, they paid for it. I got the help I needed, and God was with me every step of the way. But what I want you to do, what I want to do is take the stigma away from mental illness. We have to. If we can't do that, if we can as a church be compassionate and have compassion for our brothers and sisters, we can't be comfortable. You can't come to your pastor and not worry about being judged. Something's wrong. Now, a lot of things, I looked up some of the things that they say causes depression, and some of them might surprise you. Number one was lack of sleep. How many people have trouble sleeping? A lot of us, right? Yeah. Number two, TV. Think about it. What do you see on TV? Nothing. Nothing that's ever good most of the time. It's all bad. Number three is the weather. You know, in the wintertime, when the nights get short, longer, and the days get shorter, it's cold, it's dreary, that contributes to it. Tough decisions. We all have to make tough decisions in life. And those affect us more than what we think. So, our diet, we're some a little fat, but our diet affects it. Relationships. The relationships you have with husbands and wives, fathers and children, friends, church family. Relationships affect depression, people with depression. Nicotine. It's bad. Thyroid disease. And I mentioned before brain chemistry. Brain chemistry has a lot to do with it. And any kind of serious illness, whether it be illness with you or some kind of serious illness within your family. Now, my family, my grandfather, my mom's dad, committed suicide. I have 5 first cousins on my mom's side that committed suicide. So depression runs strong in my family. So it is hereditary. I don't care what they say, it is. A depressed person, there's certain things that you can say to a depressed person that just makes it worse. And we've all heard them, all the old cliches, pull up your bootstraps and go on. Oh boy, you need to toughen up. All of those things, I've had, one of the good ones is I've had worse stuff than that happen to me. Or snap out of it, that's a good one too. Snap out of it, just snap out of it. Well, don't you think if I could snap out of it, I would, because I don't want to feel the way I'm feeling,
Right.
you know? Most of the time, a depressed person just wants somebody to listen. Somebody to be there, for them not to be alone, a shoulder to cry on. Most of the time, that's what people want. But every Sunday in church, we go to one another and we say, "How are you?" But do you really mean it? Think about that now. Do you really mean it? Because somebody with depression or anxiety or some kind of mental disorder, they may call you at 3 o'clock in the morning. Are you ready for that? So the next time you ask somebody how they are, you better be ready. Okay? We need to be more aware of one another. You know, we come to church and the person sitting next to us, sometimes you can tell if something's wrong with them, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes they don't want to talk about it. Sometimes all you can do is pray for them. We need to do that. I know, and Tammy, I hope you don't mind me mentioning you, but I know Tammy deals with it a lot. She deals with it a lot. And one of the worst things that you can say to a Christian, bar none, one of the worst things you can say is you don't have enough faith. Because it ain't got nothing to do with faith. You just push them further and further down. I have a friend whose pastor told her that she needed to have more faith. She didn't need medicine. That came from her pastor. Thought,
I said, that's what they make it for.
yeah. So that, that's just a little bit of my story, and I want it to be as open and honest as we can possibly be with one another. But if you have some questions for me, or if there's something that you want to share, I want you to do that. Because it's just important to be honest. You have to be as honest with yourself as you can be. I still go to a counselor. Go once a week. It's a daily battle for me. Daily. Not because I don't love God, because I love Him. I know He loves me. But that's just the way it is. But it has made me a more humble person. It has made me a more compassionate person. And it's helped me to be more Christ-like, to understand people's problems. My sister dealt with depression her whole life. And I used to think, well, she could do better than that. And I would tell her, I said, sis, you need to get up. She slept all the time. You need to get up, walk around. Or you need to get up, go out, do something. Don't stay in the bed all the time. Why are you crying? Ain't nothing to cry about. Why are you crying? But those words came back to bite. And in the end, I realized one thing. She was doing the best she could. Regardless of what you think. Yeah, maybe they could do better. But sometimes people are just simply doing the best they can. You have to remember that. And that's hard. Sometimes, some days our best isn't that good. I know mine's not. You take it. Lots of days. Yeah. Yeah.
What's bad is whenever you feel like you're happy about something and you notice it. Oh, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because depression keeps you from being that way a lot.
Yes. Yeah. And if you are happy, then the thought pops in your head. You're like, no, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. If I can get it stopped before I start down the road, then I'm okay. But if I start down the road, then I'm in for a long day. Just going to be honest about it. do y'all have any questions? Bill?
Trying to ask this the right way. If I ask you how you're doing, you'll give me an honest answer.
Not always.
See, that's the problem with someone like me.
Used to, I wouldn't. But now, yes, because I don't care what people think of me anymore.
Well, see, because you've come to that point where, you know, you're going to.
Yeah.
But that's part of the problem. A lot, you know, I would say probably more times than not, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So how do I know, you know?
But, you know, like, one of the signs is they'll withdraw from you. Depressed people, the things that you know that they enjoy, they no longer enjoy. That's depression. That's when it's working on them the hardest.
But
Like,
why do you think that they're unwilling to share? Is it-
because they don't want people to think bad of them.
Well,
Just
and
judge.
Right, and
that's
see,
not
you should
always-
never, in a
that's
church,
not-
you should never be judged.
Right.
That's
But
not
I
always
mean,
the case.
it's all-
Sometimes,
I know they do.
sometimes you feel like that person's just not understanding.
Yeah. Well, you don't give them a chance. I mean, you know, a lot of times we don't give one another a chance to understand.
A lot of
But-
times you
but-
don't realize that that person has either dealt with it or has had a family member that's
Well,
dealt with it.
you know, I thought I was alone.
Right.
And then when I went to Rolling Hills, let me tell you, it's a whole bunch of people. A whole bunch of people.
I was just gonna say, to me, depression has no logic. And if somebody asks you how you feel, and it's not just a bad day, you have true depression, you emotionally cannot pull all that up to converse it to someone else, I think.
No, a lot of
So
times you can't.
You cannot,
No.
especially in just a passerby setting. And sometimes you yourself cannot even bring all that up to the surface to
Yeah.
relay it. So I don't think it's a conscious choice that you just poo it off, oh, I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I just, it's pretty complex.
Yeah.
Unless you have
It's-
someone
Yeah. It's a lot to
But I think to Bill's thing though, if you truly can feel that they're not okay, like you can act, I mean, if they say, no, I'm okay, and you know that came off sarcastically, you can say, are you, you could ask, you could redirect your question and ask them again to make sure that they're okay and not just leave it.
some,
And maybe not in that instance, when you ask them that at
Yeah.
that conversation, and check on them later,
Well,
because,
sometimes all you can do is pray for them. Sometimes that's all you can do.
Because
And let them know that you love them.
their body language tells it, and then you can check on them later.
Yeah.
I mean, because you know that maybe not at that point that they're being honest with you, and you can feel it, and you might not wanna pull at them, and you can,
Some people are better at reading.
I think you have
Others
to
than-
open yourself up
Yeah.
as the person that's asking the question. I think you have to open yourself up to the fact that they might not really be telling you
The truth. Yeah.
But
Because I have done that.
if we're being honest, I will never understand. I don't think I'll ever grasp understanding, like you said. If someone may not come up to somebody and because of what they won't understand, most of us may not understand. We can empathize with it, but we can't sympathize. There's that, but we can sit there and listen. We can sit
Yeah.
there and be a friend. But I'll probably never grasp the understanding
You
of.
may not ever grasp it,
It's just
but
what
if
like
you
a
try
lot
to
of things
understand
are.
it, that means a lot.
Well,
It's like
just
I'm
somebody
trying to understand that,
dies.
but we have to have the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, like he was saying, we had a class one Wednesday night here, and I just thought about what Bill said. If I come up and ask you as a church family, when we ask somebody how you're doing, that church family should react and say, okay, he really cares, or she really cares, and if something's bothering me, I need to be able to share that with my church family. No
Yeah.
judging, no nothing of that nature there. But,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know what goes on all the time with you, Danny, and I don't know with my wife.
Right,
But when I ask you on Sundays, and this is anybody, and I ask you whenever I see you, how you doing? You know, I don't know what to do unless you tell me, dude.
That's
You
why I
know, and
started.
that's everybody.
That's why I
mean,
started
I'm
out.
here, if I didn't want to help, I wouldn't have asked you how
Right.
you doing.
That's why I started out tonight with that word, honesty.
Uh,
That's why I said I was gonna be honest with you. We needed to be honest with one another. And you need to be honest with yourself.
And that might be where we have the greeting in the morning, and so it says, I'm not doing too good. That's when you say, we'll take a minute, and
Yes.
walk out.
Yeah.
If it's a whole hour that we're in here, you're back there, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
if, and I don't know enough people deeply, I'll be honest with you, I'm a circus person. You know, I see somebody, you know, how you doing?
Mhm.
We're doing fine, I'm moving on. I mean, you know, I'm just go on. But if someone did say something to me and said, you know, I'm not doing too well, I want to stop and say, well, what's wrong?
Yeah,
What's the problem?
that's
How can I
why,
help?
you know, that was the main thing. That's, you know, honesty, that's the word we started with. We gotta start there.
Times you come up to me and say, how you doing? I say, good.
Yeah. I
He
know,
does, he does.
I know.
Sure.
yeah.
But see, he knows more about you than I do. And there's a difference.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a lot of connection with a lot of people in here, a few, but I don't know them very deeply. And that's just me.
We got to get to the point as a church where you feel comfortable with anybody in here. Not just Peter. And Peter is a great one.
Amen.
And that's gonna be the ones who come here on a typically regular basis on Wednesday nights, who are the ones you really can
Yeah.
properly get in trust with.
Yeah.
The general population is gonna be a little tougher than that.
Yes, but if they see us being open and honest
Right.
and non-judgmental, they're gonna notice that. And when people know that you're genuine and you genuinely care about them, they're gonna open up more to you.
We need to be that way, not just about people who suffer from depression, but people who have all other types of things going on.
Yes.
Things in their family going on.
That's with divorce,
Right.
teenagers, you know, you got, all of us have teenagers that go through things. And whether it's embarrassing to us or not, we should still be able to come to our church family and find help.
We all have this mentality that I go to church and I'm a Christian, so everything's great with me.
Yeah.
You know, my kids are great, they don't cause any problems.
Yeah.
And it's just not that way. We live our life just like
Yes.
everybody else does.
Well, I will tell you this about this church. Everybody that I tell about this church, I compliment my church family to the fullest, because we've never been to a place where we walked in this place and they're not worried about trying to get in your business. They genuinely care about you.
Yeah.
You know, if they say they're gonna pray for you, they're gonna pray for you. You know, so they're, I mean, I
Gonna
love
hug you,
my
gonna
church
hug you.
family.
Yeah.
You know what? Gonna hug you, I'm gonna hug you.
Amen.
Yeah, well, y'all know me. I usually get through hugging about 2 songs after it's over, so,
And if you don't hug us, we'll hunt you down.
yeah. That's the thing.
Maybe
But-
that's how you know something's wrong.
Well,
But somehow, we're gonna have to telegraph the way we look at it, of, you don't have to be ashamed of that.
yeah,
If you're having a bad day, tell me you're having a bad day.
yeah, that's what, we gotta be honest. Yeah.
If you think about the people you work closely with every day, if they were going through something, would they have to tell you, or would you be able to tell by their actions, or the things they say, or the things that they don't say, or they don't go to lunch with you? You'd pick up on it because you're around them a lot. We aren't around each other that much to know what those signals are, and I do think that's something that we have to work on, because a depressed person is not gonna come out and tell you. They're not.
For a long time, I didn't even tell her why.
You
I
would,
don't know, you probably, long time you didn't say nothing to Dan, either, I'm sure.
and,
Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
go ahead.
You know, depression, as you mentioned a while ago, affects everybody, even lawyers and doctors on down, you know, it doesn't matter who everybody is faced with. It's that, like you said, with depression. And sometimes people that's depressed don't want to share that they're depressed.
Yeah,
They, you know, like you said, they want to be alone, but the church family can do so much by praying, that's for sure.
mhm.
But you know, most of the time, a depressed person needs some medicine and some help.
And there's nothing, the other thing too that we need to understand and we need to realize, there's nothing wrong with somebody taking medicine.
And that's what I was gonna say, is when you don't notice that that person is, they could be the happiest person. That look on their face can be so deceiving. They could wake up every morning, have a smile on their face, be the happiest person, getting out every day, and that person could be deceiving. Let me tell you, I mean, I would go to work every day, be happy. I'm like, you would never think that I was sometimes miserable. Like, going to the I mean, finally in July, I told the doctor, I've got to have something. I'm about ready to kill everybody I come in contact with. I'm just gonna kill my husband, I'm just gonna kill my kids. Not necessarily I was gonna kill them, but I was like, to the point, I was ready to go off. I felt like I was my mama. I didn't want to be at that point. I mean, and it's just not that I was depressed about life, I was depressed about my job or anything. Hormones my hormones were so out of whack, I was just this depressed person. So medically, I became this depressed person.
Yeah.
And I had never been that person. I was miserable. Number one, not that I work in a doctor's office, I'm a nurse. I wasn't against medicine. Tell people every day, take your medicine. Take it like you're supposed to. Don't miss it. Do I take my medicine like I'm supposed to? No. But I preach it. And I wouldn't take it, but the day that I went to the doctor, I took some medicine from work, a sample home. And I'm like, I need it. My kid sit at the kitchen table and told me, Mama, you need some medicine. You're like my mom. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my kids are telling me this. And I wasn't happy with my life at that point, and I just felt like everything was falling apart. But would you think people knew that about me? Nobody but my kids and my husband probably. Maybe my close family, because I wasn't the same person. I was with Drew. I didn't really care about going places and doing things, but outside people wouldn't have known that, because I put on this show. I was this happy person, and I did things.
You're pretty easy for me to read to listen.
Well, you pretty easy for me to read.
But you put the mask on, that's
Yeah.
what,
And
that's
that's
what
what,
counselors call it, a mask,
No,
put that mask on.
The Bible says a lot about worry.
Mhm.
It doesn't mention depression, but it speaks a whole lot about worry, and worry can lead to depression.
and
Yes.
that's the stress that worries it. And stress brings on a bunch of it.
So, yes, ma'am.
I think and I certainly believe in the medication as well, but I don't think that if we know somebody's on medication that's doing well, you don't quit praying for them, because I think when you're praying for God, you're surrounding people. He puts little things in your life to protect you.
Yes.
You can protect those people, you can protect them from something that might make it worse. I think, I love the medicine, I think, it's wonderful. I don't think there should be a guilt factor there, but, the prayer, I still
Yeah.
never think it should
Yeah.
never cease for anybody that you know
Yeah.
particularly.
A lot of us, if we sit down and think about it, I don't have anything to be depressed about, but I am,
That's depression.
you know.
Well, and there's not logic to it.
No, there's no logic
But
to it.
people that don't have depression would look at you and say, oh, you've got a good life, you've got,
Yeah.
you know, that,
Yeah, I got
there's
money,
nothing to
you know.
play into it.
No.
If you've ever been through it, and you can't explain it or.
You know, doing my studying and my research, it says only 36% of the people who have depression or some form of anxiety will seek treatment.
But it's hard to seek it because you don't wanna be judged when you do.
Right.
Like, you don't wanna go in there and tell your story, because the first thing they're gonna do to you is, that's the first thing in your head, you're thinking, well, this person is gonna judge me because I'm gonna come in here and tell them what's going on.
Yeah.
And as a nurse, when I went and told the doctor what was going on, you know, the first thing she told me was, you're having problems at home with your husband? No, my husband is my best friend.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that there's something that's
Well,
not
I'm ready to
right.
kill him.
But that was the first thing that
Yeah.
I felt was, I'm being judged. And that's why we don't seek it.
Well, and you also have this assumption that if you go to a doctor, and I can't speak for the doctor, but I'm thinking, assumption you go to the doctor, saying you got an issue, well, take these pills and take care of it.
Yeah.
Take these pills and take care of it.
Well,
I don't want their pill, I want
That
to
was
find,
one of
you
the
gotta find the
things-
roots before you go.
That was one of the things that when I went and I talked to the doctor, I said, look, if you can give me something to help me, okay. But if you're gonna give me something
Mask.
to help me or mask what's going on that's gonna give me 3 or 4 other problems, then I don't want it. Number one, I saw people at that hospital that were walking around like zombies. They were so drugged, they didn't know where they were. And in choosing between that and being depressed, I would choose to being depressed.
At least you have feelings.
Yeah. You know, all right, seeing those people there, done a lot for me, it helped me. You know, I asked Michelle, somebody, I think you're going crazy. She told me, she said, no. So then I asked my counselor, I said, am I going crazy? No, but I thought it was. Thought it was. Well, next week, we're gonna talk about how the church should deal with depression. And we'll talk about some figures, some people in the Bible that dealt with it. And we'll have to read some scriptures and talk about that. But the one I want to tell you about before we do, and I'm going to end it with this. For a long time, it was hard for me to get my head around the concept that Jesus was 100% man and 100% God. So he felt what we feel. He's already been there. He's already done it. He's sweating blood in the garden. Asked God to take it from him. He was hurting. So what he felt, he feels what we feel. He felt all of that. Only he did it without sin. But he's already been through it. So he understands. He knows what's going on. And ultimately, that's the one that's going to, where your healing is going to come from, is your relationship with him. Because he loves you no matter what. He'll never leave you. You have to remind yourself that. Nobody else in this world loves you. Jesus loves you. So I'll end it with that. Brother Peter, you got anything there?
Well, thank you, Danny, and appreciate the transparency. I know that's not easy to do. And that's really what we're talking about. I don't expect the church to become a mind reader. I mean, that's impossible. We can only act upon the information someone gives us. So if we say, how you doing, and they say fine, asked and answered. But, you know, we do kind of have this judgmental thing, and Christians ought not to be judgmental. You know, if somebody came in and they had leukemia, we said, well, they have leukemia, they take medicine for it. They got diabetes or whatever it is, that's just who they are. We all come with stuff, and it may be medical stuff, it may be emotional stuff, it may be, but it's stuff. And so the church just needs to be receptive and say, take you as you are. We just love you who you are, and we're willing to journey with you, and, you know, warts and all. Because I don't know what you see when you look in the mirror, but I don't see perfect. You know, I say, I wish I was the man my dog thought I was. My dog loves me unconditionally. I just go to the mailbox and come back, and it's the happiest thing. I wish I could live up to that expectation, but I'm not there. And I think the more honest we are about who we are and deal with people honestly, I think that's what it means to be church. So thanks for having the conversation, and I look forward to more of those. Thank you, sir. Let's close out. Father,